No one expected us to be holding these European elections, but the government's complete failure on Brexit means they're going ahead against a backdrop of division and of frustration. A vote for Labour is a vote to bring our divided country back together. Labour is the only party with a plan to unite our country and make it work for the many, not the few. We will end austerity, invest in our economy and our communities, and raise wages and living standards. Labour's alternative plan for Brexit, which protects jobs, living standards and communities, would end the chaos caused by the Conservatives and let us focus on the other big issues facing our country. It is a real and credible plan that would allow the next Labour government to rebuild our manufacturing industries and restore pride and prosperity to parts of our country that have been neglected for far too long. That neglect was, I believe, a major reason behind the vote for Brexit in the first place. 3 years of botched negotiations between the government and the European Union have left everyone frustrated. Over 17 million people voted to leave the European Union. As democratic socialists, we cannot ignore that. We voted to trigger Article 50 in 2017 and promised to respect the referendum in our general election manifesto and again at our party conference in Liverpool last year. But we cannot respect the government's shambolic handling of Brexit that has caused huge uncertainty for people, businesses and jobs. When Theresa May became Prime Minister, she didn't consult either Parliament or the country. Brexit policy was announced through a series of speeches, declared, never discussed. What we got was 3 years of the Tories spending more time arguing with themselves than negotiating with Europe. What the Prime Minister finally cooked up led to the biggest government defeat in Britain's parliamentary history. It wasn't until that damaging deal had been defeated 3 times that the government had already missed its own deadline for leaving, that the Prime Minister finally admitted she needed to compromise. Labour agreed to talks because we believed it was the right thing to do, to see if we could get a better deal in line with our plan. The needs of businesses and trade unions, a deal that would see us leave the EU but keep a close relationship with our major trading partners. So far, in those talks, there's been no big offer, and the red lines remain in place. It's actually quite difficult negotiating with a disintegrating government, with cabinet ministers jockeying for succession rather than working for an agreement. It is in the country's interest to try to get this sorted one way or the other. But we can never accept the government's bad deal or a disastrous no deal. So, if we can't get a sensible deal along the lines of our alternative plan or a general election, Labour backs the option of a public vote on it. I am very worried about how divided our society has become. Every week, I go to a different part of the country, campaigning, meeting people, and spending a lot of time listening to people in all kinds of different places, factories, schools, colleges, on the street, care homes, hospitals, all kinds of places. And over the last year, I've seen the divisions grow around Brexit. In communities, in families, there are real tensions. So how do we go forward? We could all retreat to our respective side of the argument and let the bitterness drive us further apart. We could allow ourselves to be defined only as Remainers or Leavers. labels that meant nothing to us only a few years ago. But where would that take us? Who wants to live in a country stuck in this endless loop? What's needed is a bit of understanding. Understanding of why so many people felt so frustrated with the system they voted to leave. And understanding why so many others believe that staying in the EU is the only way to protect our valuable, open and diverse society. Some people seem to look at the issue the wrong way round. They tend to think the first question is leave or remain, as if either is actually an end in itself. I think they're wrong. The first question is, what kind of society do we want to be? And on that, people can find so much common ground. Labour, and only Labour, stands on that common ground in this election. That's why we insist the real divide in our country is not how people voted in 2016. The real divide is between the many and the few. Whether you're in Tottenham or Mansfield, Stockwell or Stoke, Medway or Manchester, so many of the problems you face are exactly the same. And while the government's incompetence and divisions over Brexit have created this deadlock, the injustices in our society are deepening. Those injustices aren't to do with backstops, implementation periods, and all that rather strange and often obscure jargon. They are about whether your children will go to a school that can afford the basics, or one where the head teacher sends begging letters to parents. Whether your relatives will be treated quickly and safely on the National Health Service, or wait in pain and distress for months. Whether your parents will get a helping hand in old age, or be left isolated and very afraid. And whether we as a country can end the burning injustices in our society. Theresa May once talked about them, but did nothing about them. Austerity, insecure work, low wages cause anger and disillusion. Some want to use that to stoke further division. But it wasn't the European Union that slashed public services to pay for tax cuts for the richest. It was a Tory government. It wasn't nurses and teachers who crashed our economy. It was bankers and hedge funds. And it wasn't immigrants who caused the biggest squeeze on wages since the Napoleonic Wars. It was bad employers. We need solutions, not scapegoats. When you blame your neighbour rather than the powerful for problems with the health system, or for overcrowded classrooms, or for lack of housing, you're letting those responsible off the hook. You haven't trained a doctor. You haven't trained a nurse. You haven't opened a new school. You haven't built a house. You haven't secured a penny of extra investment. All you've done is fuel an atmosphere of division and nastiness in our society. It is only by coming together and working together that we can improve people's lives. Labour will stand up for all workers, black and white. And we will guarantee the rights of EU citizens and students in this country, and British people who want to work and study in the EU in the same way. We are internationalists to our very core. That's what our party was founded for more than 100 years ago. So when we see the emboldened far right strutting its stuff across Europe, and in this country too, in the shape of UKIP and its hangers-on, our response is to strengthen our ties with working class and progressive movements both at home and abroad. The biggest issues facing us, like tax avoidance and the power of multinational corporations, are international issues that demand international solutions. And the biggest issue of all, and it is the biggest of all, the climate and environment emergency that threatens everyone's future, cannot be averted by one country alone. Climate breakdown, air pollution, and the frightening, nay, terrifying loss of species demand and require collaboration across national borders. And I'm so proud that Labour led the way last week to make the UK Parliament the first in the world to declare an environmental and climate emergency. And I hope our action from the opposition benches sparks a wave of declaration of climate emergency by Parliament and governments around the world. Because we have to work together to confront the issues facing the whole globe. If we don't, then we're all facing a very uncertain future. So we will always work and cooperate closely with progressive allies in Europe and all across the world. These elections are also a chance to challenge the poison being peddled by the likes of Nigel Farage. He says Brexit is being blocked by the elite. It's not true. The large majority of MPs have voted for a Brexit deal in one form or the other. The Brexit Party is in fact the no deal party. And for millions, no deal would mean no jobs, an economic shock threatening entire industries, and here in Kent, turning the M20 into a permanent lorry park, causing massive disruption and, of course, pollution. It would be an elite Brexit that would only work for the richest. Those who want to deregulate, to slash public services, deny rights at work, and still further. It would be a Donald Trump Brexit, leaving us at the mercy of a reckless and bellicose US administration. Nigel Farage's Brexit is a Brexit for conspiracy theorists, for those who see Muslims and migrants or George Soros as their enemy. Only Labour can see off the Farage snake oil in this election. And stand by our shared values of respect, tolerance, openness, and be proud of our diversity. It's said that Labour is trying to offer something for everyone over Brexit. I make no apology for that. Labour will never be the party of the 52 or the party of the 48. We are the party of the great majority who reject the politics of smear and scapegoating. We're a party of unity and social justice. Other parties appeal to just one side of the Brexit debate because they aren't really committed to taking on the tax dodgers, the big polluters, or the financial gamblers who crashed our economy a decade ago, to transform our economy, our country, and tackle injustice, inequality, and the climate crisis. We need to unite the overwhelming majority of people and take on the privileged and the powerful. Labour will address the inequalities that help fuel the Brexit vote by investing in our communities and people all across the country, ending austerity and creating a fairer society. And we will lead the fight against racism at home and across Europe wherever it raises its ugly head. It's Labour that wants to bring our country back together. So, whether you voted Leave or Remain in 2016, I urge you to vote for Labour in these elections, for the party that is determined to bring the many together and take on the entrenched power of the few. Thank you very much.